Okay, yeah, I had trouble with that video. That was like half a week ago. It's June 21st now. Um, yeah, for some reason, I had trouble figuring out what I wanted to say and how to say it. Um, yeah, so yeah, I finished off by saying like one of I've heard people call them like downloads or whatever, like a message. It's not you. Um, yeah, it's really, really hard to talk about this. Anybody that's done it knows it's really hard to talk about it. Um, I just felt like it, I felt really sort of like far away from. I didn't have a specific idea in my mind of like, my family or whatever stuff that happened or whatever. It was nothing specific like that. But this sort of like thought or this message or whatever, it's not you. It was like it's not you, like the bad things that happened, the bad things that people did, um, things that happened to me or things that people did to me. It's not you. And there's something about when you do this. I don't know about, like doing math or chess or whatever. Maybe that's more like a purely intellectual process or whatever. But in terms of figuring out your shit, um, you you can't just sort of intellectually understand something. Like you sort of have to feel it, and that's what this was like. It's like, that was just like a sort of a message, but it felt like it was like, 20% like those words and 80% just a feeling. So that's why it's so hard to talk about this. And people that have done it, they often find it hard to talk about it. I wasn't even sure if I was ready to talk about this, but I feel like I have to. We're just going to have to get through this. Like, I literally stopped that video halfway through, and waited half a week and I had to come back to it because I think I have to sort of get through this before we can continue. Um, yeah, that was like the core sort of message that I got. And I believe, like I said in the last video, I think there's a part of you that can't be touched. So I think that I wasn't getting a message from some intelligence, which some people claim like there's some type of intelligence. I honestly think it was just me. And I think this stuff that grows in the forest, all it does is it facilitates you doing the work and understanding things, and it sort of will like I don't know, like open up doors. It breaks down walls. Um, I remember when I was, coming up, the first thought I had when after I, threw up and I cleaned up the barf, the first thought I had is I was coming up and really breaking the gravitational pull of the earth. And I remember thinking, I was saying to myself, maybe none of it ever made any sense. Maybe it never made any sense. And I was just kind of like laughing in a way at that. And it's not that nothing ever made any sense necessarily. I think that it was just sort of breaking me down. And I was letting myself be broken down and just kind of like giving in. Yeah, but I mean, I don't know time. You don't really have a perception of time when this is going on. It is like a dream. It was a fever dream. So it wasn't long after that I got that sort of message or whatever. It's not you. And there were some other things. I'm not going to go through like every detail. I sort of feel like I need to just kind of get through this and so that we can go forward. Um, like it's most definitely connected with what I'm going to tell you about, and it was part of sort of the process I've been going through, and yet it somehow feels separate. Um, yeah, so I just felt really, I felt separated from the bad things that had happened, and with no clear, precise like idea of what those things were. Like I said, like how I grew up, or the stuff I've told you about, like in the video a couple of videos ago. But yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember one thing I was repeating over and over again. As I said, I had no idea. I had no idea. I kept repeating that over and over again. And I remember there were times when it was just like it or whatever. It was just, I don't know how to describe it. The feeling, the perception was coming at me uh, just like a fire hose, and it almost got to be like too much at one point, which I'll talk about. There was a point when I was just like, I wasn't hearing any message or any language or anything, but I was just kind of like saying, uh-huh, okay, okay, I understand. And I wasn't responding to any like words or anything. It was crazy. But it was just crazy. It was like somehow receiving something like a message, but not in the form of language. And it was just freeing, and it was like separating me. It was just showing me it's not you. It seems like the effect. It seems like it's kind of like pressing the reset button on your brain, which could be helpful for somebody who's struggling with addiction or depression, and other things apparently as well. It can be useful for, but they're still researching that. Um, but like it's those people that are researching it and trying to figure out how to like apply it, in a clinical setting, like maybe your doctor, 5-10 years from now will be prescribing it. Those people are like, lecturers at West Point, like lecturing on the theory of like infantry combat or whatever. But we are in the trenches, we are in Bakhmut, and the bullets and the drones are flying overhead, and we're trying to survive. So I can't recommend that anybody try this, but I was able to recommend it for myself because I was in the trenches trying to survive. At one point, yeah, it did. So I want to say this, just if you decide to try it, like some things that worked for me and helped me, it can help you. So meditation and breathing really helped. There was one point when it really was just like a fire hose, like, drinking from a fire hose. It was just too much. And I needed to like calm myself. And so I consciously, like, I still had the ear protectors on, or maybe I didn't actually. Anyways, I'm pretty sure I had the blindfold on, but I got into like a cross-legged position, and basically just focused on breathing, like focused on the inhaling and exhaling and everything. And so what happened, it was weird. In my mind, it was like there was a lake during a storm. It's like really choppy waters, And it was really like, it was like too much. It was like, on some level, like in a non-specific way, I was like starting to freak out. And I just inhaled like really slowly and then exhaled. And I swear to God, when I exhaled, that lake just became a mirror, like in an instant. And in that moment, I was like, cool, like I was able to deal with that, like not fighting it, but just, I remember I don't talk to myself. Like I sort of talk to myself, but I don't really talk to myself. Like in my life, I'll pace back and forth in the room and talk to myself. But in this experience, I actually talked to Chris, and I was like, I remember I told myself, you can do this. Just let go. Don't fight it. You can do this. And I told myself that very deliberately, which is not normally like how I think in my head. There was another time when I started to feel this paralysis in my hands. Like the muscles in my hands were like, it's like they were claws, and I felt this paralysis, and it started to go up the forearm, and I felt it like going up my arm. And that's all mental, because this stuff doesn't like cause physical, paralysis. It's not a poison. Um, and so that started happening. I remember I felt hot. I had this sweater on, and I had been in this fever dream, so I was hot, like I was probably sweating. And so I wanted to take the sweater off, and I couldn't because I had this like paralysis in the muscles. It was going up to my forearm, and I tried to hook my fingers around the sweater and pull it off, and I got it like halfway up, but I could not complete the maneuver. And so I'm like inside the sweater. It's like I don't like this, because I'm scared, like I don't want to be inside the sweater. I feel like I'm gonna like suffocate or something. And so when that happened, I just said, okay, stop, so I pulled it back down. And then I said, look, just stop. Okay. Just let go. Just relax. Okay. You're going to be okay. And again, I got into that cross-legged position and just kind of like meditated. I don't know if 10 minutes went by or 1 minute. And then I just felt totally, totally fine. No paralysis, took my sweater off. So there could be moments if you try this that are going to be difficult like that. So that worked for me. Yeah, I don't know what else to say, like in terms of the fever dream. I don't know what else to say. When I came out of the real fever dream part of it, I was still, like flying high, but aware. I was back in the room again. And I was aware of myself and the world and where I was and stuff. And I was just like in awe, basically. And, I'm certain, people, normal people, happy people that do this, they have some great experience. I'm sure it's great. I'm not sure if it can be as much ecstasy as it is for somebody who's clinically depressed and addicted. I just don't know if you can ever top that. Like, kind of ironic, but I mean, it is, if you can get that, if you can ride that wave, if you can do the work beforehand, which is immensely important, and the work after is, I'll talk about that, I guess, in future videos. But if you can do it right, if you can approach it in the right way, if you can open your heart and just let go, you will be surprised. And yeah, you will be amazed, and you have no idea. You have no fucking idea. Yeah, so I was just sort of like amazed, just lying there as I was coming down. I was just like amazed, lying there in bed. Slowly started rehydrating. The nausea slowly started to go away. Apparently that's why you do it on an empty stomach. It hits you harder and there's less nausea. There was basically no nausea except for when I threw up. But then, yeah, when I was coming down, I was just like, I didn't really feel hungry or thirsty at first, but I slowly rehydrated. And yeah, then eventually I had like some pineapple and some cheese just as a snack, and just went back to bed and just lay there feeling more amazed. And then eventually, I just made dinner, and I was just fucking blown away. And actually I had the idea, like I wanted to, I really, like, I even had the idea I would like tell my wife, like later, like what it was like, but then I just like went to sleep. And so, yeah, that was that trip. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. So the after part, that'll come in future videos, but I think the main thing is, like I said, before, during, and after. It's really important to do the work before. I did a year of therapy, and I did years of suffering before that, and thinking and feeling and suffering, and thinking and feeling about the suffering and so on. So I definitely did the work. But it seems like it's just like, it's like a shot in the arm. It's like something that facilitates the process. I use the analogy for depression of like your desktop. Another one is sort of like, if you imagine your life, it's like a national park, and there's mountains and hills and valleys and a river and a lake and fields and stuff like that. And in the lowest valley in the whole park, at the lowest point of that valley, there is a cleft. And so like 20, 30 feet down at the bottom of that cleft, that's where you are. That's sort of what depression and addiction feels like. That's one way of putting it. And so if somebody was to rappel down into that cleft and sit there and talk to you, and they would ask you, do you remember, like, this is the Chris's National Park. Do you remember, because you've been all over this park, do you remember climbing the mountains? Do you remember the valley? Do you remember the trees and the forest and the lake? And if they were sitting there talking to you about it, like, you would be able to recall the fact of it, but you can't feel it. It's the only way I can describe it. You could technically remember that, oh yeah, I swam in the lake and I walked in the forest and I climbed up that mountain there, but you can't feel it. You just can't feel it. So there's something about understanding, at least maybe not with math or chess, but with this kind of shit, there's something about understanding that is connected to feeling. It's not just technically, there's no hack per se, at least not a hack in a purely intellectual, technical sense. I think probably there is a hack. I'm going to get into this in future videos, but the hack is here. So the thing about this experience is that it makes it so that you can feel it. And I guess it helps you to look at things from a different perspective. And, like I said, with the analogy of the desktop, the analogy for depression with the desktop, it's a problem with perception, because those old files in that buried folder deep in your file directory, like it last accessed, like 3, 4, or 5 years ago. So I think in terms of using this to try and pull yourself out of that cleft, it's useful because it helps you to look at things from a different perspective and to feel things that maybe you haven't felt in a long time. And so you come out of that, and then life is the trip. So you must, if you do this right, you will reflect on it and think about it and feel it and remember it for the rest of your life. And so that's what I did in particular, the year and a half after that, December 2023. Year and a half after that, continued to reflect on it and think about it, and the dividends that it's paid are absolutely amazing. Immediately after, the week after, I remember thinking, this was worth more than $10 billion. They could have given me a mansion or 3 mansions in different locations in the world and $10 billion in the bank, everything I want. And I could be sitting by the pool in one of my mansions, supposedly doing great, and I'm rich, and I would still be plagued by these thoughts and this unhappiness and these sort of rage episodes. It wouldn't have made any difference. It was literally worth more than $10 billion, the experience that I had. I would absolutely not trade it for $10 billion, not in a heartbeat. It's impossible to put a value on that. Okay, so I'm going to end this video, and maybe I'll be able to finish everything today. Longest day of the year. Okay.